So as I mentioned, my name's Izzy Silvers, my pronouns are she and her, and I'm an editor and freelance journalist. Here is my social media if you want to follow me. I'll leave my contact details at the end of this talk as well, but you feel free to kind of DM me on Twitter or Instagram if you do want any advice or have any questions. I may take months to reply, but I will get back to you at some point. It's an anxiety thing. I'm working on it. So I just thought I'd go through quickly my employment history and kind of how I've got to the place that I am today. So I was quite lucky in that I knew I wanted to be a journalist from a very young age. So kind of 15, 16, I thought that's what I want to do. And I had my heart set on fashion journalism. So I did everything I possibly could to get experience in fashion journalism. I interned, when I was really young, I interned at Style the Runway, I think it was called, in Birmingham, which is where I'm from. That was a fashion show. And, like, even though it wasn't journalism, I thought it's fashion, it's still in the area that I want to go into. It will be good experience. And I did the same things in London as well. I got a placement at Love magazine. I don't know if anyone knows that magazine, because my friend's mom worked for the editor's dad. So I kind of got in through that little triangle of getting into Love magazine. But then I also applied for loads of different internships. So I interned at More magazine, I was at The Guardian, I was at Look, I was at InStyle, I was at a small website called Ruffler. I went to uni in Brighton, and while I was in Brighton, I was looking at, again, what the fashion scene was there. And I went and worked at Brighton Fashion Week. Again, I was working as a producer on the show, so not directly journalism related, but I ended up being the digital editor of the Brighton Fashion Week website. So you never know where things might go. Then my first paid work came at The Debrief, which sadly is a publication that has since shut down. But I was looking on a website called Go Think Big, and I saw that they had placements at The Debrief, 2 weeks. I applied and I got it. Did my placement, and they were impressed with the work that I'd done. So they asked me back to cover their editorial assistant for a few weeks. So that was them. And then still applying for internships, still looking out for opportunities. A friend of mine posted on Facebook that InStyle magazine were looking for someone to work in their fashion cupboard. Again, not exactly what I wanted to do, but I thought, let me get in the magazine, meet these people, could be good. So I went into InStyle magazine, I worked in the cupboard for a couple of weeks, and it just so happened that at the time their features intern was unfortunately being let go. And they said, we've been impressed with Izzy's work, and she's made it known that she would really like to go into writing and journalism rather than the styling side of things. And so they gave me a trial to be their features intern, and I got the job, which was amazing. I worked at InStyle, stayed at InStyle, moved over to their website to be their digital intern, digital assistant, and eventually digital writer. And then the magazine closed, which will be a familiar theme for anyone who works in journalism. So I was looking for other opportunities, and I heard that Hearst, which is the kind of publishing company that owns Cosmo and Elle, etc., was hiring in their branded content team. Again, branded content wasn't necessarily something that I wanted to go into, but I thought, let me get in the door and let me work for Cosmo and Elle and Harper's Bazaar, and then I can see what I can do from the inside. So I got that job at Hearst. I have now been at Hearst for 5 years. I've worked my way up from being a digital commercial writer to a branded content editor. And now I've actually gone part-time. So I have been freelancing on the side. As I mentioned, I've written for the likes of Metro, Refinery 29, Stylist, a few other brands. And it kind of got to a point where I thought I need a bit more time to focus on my freelance work and my newsletter. So since September, I've been part-time at Hearst, doing 3 days there and 2 days freelancing. Along the way, I've won a few awards, which I wanted to flag for a reason that will be obvious later. I'm not just bragging, but I have been on the 30 under 30 list for the PPA. So the PPA and the BSMEs are two of the biggest journalism awards. So that I was thrilled with that. Then I was also 30 under 30 for the We Are the City Rising Star Awards in the creative category. Then diversity and inclusion is something that I'm really passionate about. And I came into the industry through something called Creative Access, which is a internship scheme that supports people from, I want to call them global majority rather than ethnic minority identities, but supports people from the global majority into placements in journalism, in media, radio, TV, publishing. They're a fantastic company and I urge you to check them out. But it's through there that I kind of really got into making sure that my career was all about lifting up marginalized voices, helping representation in the industry. And through that, I was shortlisted, didn't win, but shortlisted for Hero of the Year at the European Diversity Awards, which, when you think about it, is a bit mad. The person who won had done incredible work with AIDS. I was like, fair play. And then I was also in the top 10 for the BAME Workplace Hero Award, BAME Workplace Hero Award at the Investing in Ethnicity Awards. And then most recently, I've been named Media Week's 30 Under 30. So Media Week is a bit more, focuses on people who work in kind of commercial media. So that was lovely. But yes, there's a reason I wanted to mention those that I'll come on to in a little bit. So today we are talking about how to create opportunities for yourself and how you can, figure out your own worth and really advocate for that and advocate for yourself. And it's something that I have had to do in my career. So I didn't really know anyone apart from my friend's mom's boss, who was, the editor's dad. I didn't really know anyone in media. So all I did was, and I still say this helped me, I would watch every fashion program like The Hills, The City. I would watch The Devil Wears Prada. And as much as those, they're entertainment, I did actually learn a bit about how magazines worked and how the fashion industry worked. And I knew I would have to intern to get into the industry and do work experience. So I would follow I would Google fashion jobs or fashion internships UK, and I would find every Twitter feed, every job site. So something like Creative Access, Go Think Big, Fashion Worky on Twitter, UK Fashion Intern on Twitter as well. I'm trying to think, the Other Box as well has a jobs board, but I can kind of follow up with resources after. But I would make sure that I was following all of them. And I would really recommend that. And that's where my first tip comes from: be proactive. If you want to go into journalism, it's hard work. I don't think any of us here are going to sugarcoat that. And you really have to be proactive and go after what you want. No one's going to come to you and say, would you like a job at Vogue? You have to work your way up to get there. So definitely research all the job sites, make sure you know the publishers. So like I've said, I work at Cosmo, but we're owned by Hearst. So have a look for the Hearst UK job site. And, if you're looking at Vogue and Glamour, they're owned by Condé Nast. So go and have a look at the Condé Nast job sites. The same for Bauer Media. You just make sure that you're kind of signed up to everything so that those jobs and opportunities can come straight in your inbox. I'd also recommend Sean Mead's newsletter, and also Jem Collins. They both have newsletters and post out loads of different opportunities. And also follow So You Want to Be a Journalist as well, because there'll be opportunities there. So definitely be proactive. I would also say, don't ask, don't get. So as much as I'm telling you to follow all these jobs boards and to sign yourself up to mailing lists and apply for jobs on those sites, you don't have to wait for those to come around. There isn't anything wrong with kind of cold emailing someone where, somewhere you want to work, to see if there are opportunities for internships or work experience. The one thing I would say is I wouldn't email and ask if they have any jobs, because all of the jobs will be listed on their job sites. And sometimes those emails can come across a little bit like you haven't properly researched the company. And I know that it's difficult to know where to find the job. So, not judging anyone who has done that, but just so that you're reaching people in the right way. You can politely email and say, hi, I did it for Elle magazine. I was like, hi. And I would always go for the editorial assistant at magazines. The editor isn't the one who sorts out internships, but the more junior members of staff, they're the ones that kind of facilitate those opportunities. So I would have emailed the editorial assistant at the time and said, "Hi X, I hope you're well. I'm really interested in a career in journalism, and I've loved reading Elle magazine. I particularly love it because, and I think I said, because Elle encourages an individual sense of style rather than following the trends. And that's something that really resonates with me. I would love to see if there were opportunities for work experience or internship. You could possibly name some dates as well. So between, the end of July and the start of September. And thanks so much. And then your name. So you can email politely. And my tip is always to be specific as well. Make it easy for them to reply to. So if you're emailing for work experience, make that clear. If you're emailing maybe for some advice from them because you really like their work, be specific in what you're asking them. Don't kind of go to people and say, have you got any advice? Because that's such a broad question and journalists are so busy. So make it tailored, make it targeted, and be specific in what you're asking for. And also have a look for local magazines as well. Don't just focus on big magazines. Local magazines and newspapers are a fantastic way to really get stuck in and really get some experience. And they will probably have more, well, they will definitely have more opportunities than somewhere like Vogue or Glamour. So have a look at your local, apologies, got some water stuck in my throat. When you look around by the train station, there's like a free fashion magazine, or like I used to work at Style Birmingham. So always look for those local places as well. Another way to be proactive is finding your community. And this is one of the absolute biggest tips I can ever give you. So your community might be young journalists. It might be journalists of color. It might be queer journalists. It might be disabled journalists, working class journalists. Finding a group of people who you can connect with, you can share, questions and advice, you can share opportunities. That's something that's been really key in my career. And I can't overestimate to you how much that has impacted me in a positive way. Even if it's just, I need some support on something, a group that I've built has really, really helped me and just given me the confidence that I needed to get pitching or to, negotiate my pay, which we're going to come on to. But how do you find a community? It's difficult. So I would say that this is a community, anyone in this talk, you could connect with each other afterwards and, say, oh, wait, what I was going to say sounds arrogant, but I didn't mean it this way. But you could talk about the most interesting piece of advice or, just follow each other on social media. It's a lot easier to connect now than it ever was before, really. So make sure you're kind of looking out for, pages like So You Want to Be a Journalist, or as I say, looking at The Other Box, which has a fantastic Facebook group. If you go into Creative Access, they also have an alumni and current intern Facebook group and WhatsApp group. There is also a Facebook group called Gals in Journalism, and Gals in Journalism is for people who want to break into journalism as well. I'm trying to think of the others. There's Journo Answers. There's #1 freelance media women. So that is probably for people who are a little bit more advanced in their career, but definitely take a look and see if it could be right for you. And just find all these places and people on social media and connect with them. And you can chat in the comments, you can post questions, and you'll naturally start to engage with people. Just before everyone came on this call, we were just talking about a Twitter group that I'm in. So I saw someone tweet, thinking of starting a journalism Twitter group for journalists of color, women of color. Would anyone be interested in joining? And I replied and said, yes, I'd love to. And that group has given me so much over the past kind of 2 years that it's been going. So again, my doorbell might ring in 1 second. So again, have a look for those opportunities and don't be scared to put yourself forward, because you could meet some people who could become really great friends to you. And also another thing in terms of finding your community, definitely keep in touch with people who you might be interning with. And I would always wonder how, because people would say to me, keep in touch. And I'd be like, I don't know how. You know, what a tip that someone gave me, I think it was Atega Uagba, and I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She's fantastic as well. Follow her on social media. But what you can say is you can say, hi X, I hope you're well. I just wanted to let you know I've published this piece recently. Your advice that you gave me during the internship really helped me kind of nail that article. So thank you. And we are like, now having kind of worked with interns myself, I am interested to see how they're getting on, and I am interested to see how they're doing. And I do want to hear that. And again, social media has just made that really easy to connect with people. And, you know, you can reply to, if they've posted something and it's a great article, you think, you can comment and go, oh, I really love this. And I think that's what networking is. I think we think networking is walking up to someone you don't know in a room for 2 minutes and then you have to swap. It doesn't have to be like that. There are more subtle ways to network, but it's one of my kind of top pieces of advice. But also, as much as you're looking for jobs and kind of waiting to see what opportunities you might get, but of course you're being proactive if you listen to my tip, you don't have to wait for permission to pitch. So you don't have to be, you know, you don't have to have completed X amount of work experience placements, or, you know, done an internship at a national glossy magazine in order to pitch your ideas. You do not have to do that. As long as you've got a good idea, that's all the editor is interested in. As long as you've got a good idea, you can write it in a good way and file to deadline. No one's bothered about whether you've worked for Vogue or your local newspaper writing obituaries, you know? So I just wanted to share a little bit of a guide on how to pitch as well, because again, that can be something that holds people back. And I didn't know how to pitch even a few years ago because I was in-house, and I've now kind of learned how to do that. So first of all, I would Google if the brand has pitching guidelines. So that's something that a lot of brands have published over the past year or so. So I know Cosmo has pitching guidelines. It says who to email, what they're looking for, what to include in your pitch. So check if the brand has that. Then I would also kind of think of your idea, search on their website to see if they have already published anything similar to it, because you don't want to be pitching something that they've already done. The Cosmo guidelines have a really good way to search, because I'm not going to lie, the on-site search is so shit. It will not give you what you're looking for. The Cosmo guidelines show you how to search on Google to see if they've published anything similar before. And then what you want to do is, for your pitch, you want to think about why it's right for that brand, why it's right for that audience, why it's right for now, and why you're the best person to write it. And you kind of want to send over like a, hey, X, I hope you're well. And my name's blah, and I'm a journalist, and I'd love to pitch a story on blah, blah, blah. And then you'll include a headline for your piece. Always include a suggested headline. And again, you know, look at the site, think about what kind of headlines they would use and match it to that style. And then I would do 2 paragraphs on what your article will be. So I'm trying to think of an example I've done. So I sent a pitch to Women's Health, and it was all about women of color, or kind of people from South Asian backgrounds and Middle Eastern backgrounds not really using tampons. So I kind of said, hi, Claudia, I hope you're well. I'd love to pitch this piece on, I can't remember my exact wording, but why South Asian women don't use tampons. I gave my headline, and then I gave a short paragraph on the situation. So it was kind of like, from a very young age, a lot of young women can recall their mum teaching them how to use a tampon. However, for people from South Asian backgrounds, that's not the case. And even at 27, I still don't know if I'm putting it in properly. So that will be my kind of summary. And then the next paragraph will be, I'd love to write a piece including expert quotes from XXX. You could put potential people you could get quotes from, you don't have to. Exploring why this is, how South Asian women feel today, and what could be done in the future, or something like that. So the first paragraph is your summary. The second paragraph is how you're going to write it. And that's all you need for a pitch. It's great, what an editor is looking for is this right for our site? So sometimes people pitch to me. First of all, I don't even accept commissions. So it shows me that they haven't necessarily done their research in knowing that I don't accept commissions. I work across multiple brands and they'll say, I think this would work for your site. I'm like, which site? Is it for digital or print? These are all things that you've got to think about. And there's something I mentioned earlier that I just forgot to talk about as well, is why now and why are you the best person to write it? So another example is I wanted to review the Saved by the Bell reboot for Digital Spy. And I said, the show is coming out in America here. I know 50% of the Digital Spy audience is American and therefore they'll be watching. I am a proud winner of the UK's only, I think, Saved by the Bell quiz. So just add a little bit of detail in about why you're the best person to write the piece and what personal connection you've got to it. It's a lot of talking. I'm just going to have a little bit of water, but again, I can kind of run through that and send through resources after this talk as well, if anyone missed any of that. And then the other thing is create your own platform. So if you're not getting commissioned, and one thing to know is that you will get turned down, you will get a no, and that's just part of being a journalist. It doesn't mean that your pitch is bad. It might be that they don't have budget. It might be that they've already commissioned someone similar. It might be that they've got someone in-house working on it. There's so many reasons. It does not mean your pitch is bad, but it's good to kind of, I actually aim to get one no a week. And then you never know, often the yes, so that's good. But if you aren't kind of getting those commissions and you aren't kind of being able to write at your internships or work placements, you can do your own thing. So you could put your work on a blog. You could start a newsletter. So my newsletter is on something called Substack. Again, you can put your own writing out there and you don't need anyone giving you permission. You make your own permission. You just do whatever you want. It could be, I know Katie, who's features director, I believe, at Cosmo. She releases her own poetry on her Instagram. So you can release stuff on your own social media. And there's also Medium. So Medium is a platform where you're able to publish your own pieces. And I think at a certain level, you can start getting paid from them, but it's really high. Like I haven't been paid from the one Medium article that I've written. But, if you just want to flex your creativity and really get used to it, it's a good thing to kind of make use of. And if you're not kind of getting let in the door, then make your own door and show people how amazing you are. And this is what it's all about, as well as you kind of need that backup of work that you can show someone. Because when you pitch as well, you should always send over kind of a couple of pieces of example writing that you've done before. Again, it doesn't matter if it's for your student newspaper or Vogue, as long as the writing is good, they don't care. So yeah, definitely build up a portfolio as well if you're kind of creating your own platform. And then I think, well, I've written down a little note here that I don't even know why I put it in the section, but I'll just say it anyway. There is always a way to get things done. I think I was thinking about if you're not being let in the door. There is always a way to get things done. And journalism can be disheartening. I don't want to lie. It can be difficult. I've cried over jobs I didn't get last year. And then I was so upset, I crashed my car into the car in front of me. So know that kind of comes with the job, but there's so much joy in it as well, and it can make you so happy and so fulfilled, and you can find such an incredible community. But don't, have a moan, have a vent, find your community and bitch to them, but always kind of think of the solution, right? What can I do next? I'm not being let in here. How can I get around that? And sometimes you might need a kick up the arse from someone. So I was moaning in job interviews that people always wanted me like, oh, name me a recent feature from Elle magazine that you've loved, or name me a recent feature from the Sunday Times Style magazine that you've loved. And I was like, but I can't get the magazines. I can't buy them all. I don't know what jobs are going to come up. And someone, I can't even remember her name now, but she was like, go to the library, look online, ask a friend, go to a hairdresser. And that just switched my mindset. And I was like, yeah, I've got to stop moaning and just get it done. So sometimes you do need to kick up the arse, and that's what those communities are for, in a good way. But when you're in the job, so when you've got your placement, when you've got the pitch, when you're kind of in your career, how do you take things to the next level and know your worth? One thing I would say is to speak up. So if you're in a job, it can be daunting. I can see there's comments in the chat as well, but I'll have a look at those afterwards and then answer questions at the end, because I feel like I'm in a flow. But, you know, speak up in your job and kind of make it known. So like I say, at that internship I was at InStyle magazine, when the fashion editor would come in, you know, I would kind of say, oh, you know, I'd really love to go into journalism. And I'm not, you don't be pushy about it. I don't feel like I need to tell you guys this, like you always be polite and professional. But if you just kind of make it known what your ambitions are, where you'd like to go, what you're interested in trying. You know, for example, we film a lot of videos in my team, and I've said, oh, I'd love to present, and then I got presenting on some of the videos. So definitely let it kind of be known what you want to do, because then people, if you don't say, how are people ever going to know? So speak up, definitely. And another note that I kind of had as well is that companies can take workers for granted. So if you're not kind of speaking up and really advocating for yourself and pushing for what you want to do, kind of you have to be that driver for yourself, because you may have a great manager, you may have a great department leader, but make sure that you're doing it for yourself, because no one's going to be a bigger advocate for you than you are. Seek out opportunities as well. So what does your company offer that you can take advantage of? It's not just about going in every day, you know, doing your job and then leaving. Have a look at what courses they might offer. So I know at Hearst, they offer courses in writing a great feature, how to nail SEO, how to present on video. You know, there's loads of different courses that your company will pay for. And we just had a little chat about this before. If the company's telling you to pay for it, no. But there are lots of things that your companies can probably pay for. So, but again, you might not get handed that on a plate. Your manager might not even know about it. So it's important for you to kind of go out, see what's available and make it happen. So I've been signed up to the Writing Great Features course for like 2 years. It wasn't happening. My company were not putting it on. So I said, right, I'm going to organize a session for my team, and just did it for myself. So really make the most of what they can offer. You know, something like the ring light that I'm using right now. I filmed a lot of videos from home at the start of the pandemic. So I said, rather than you couriering me kit, you know, and I have to give it back at the end of every shoot, can you just send me some kit that I can keep, because I film quite frequently? And now I can use that ring light for anything, you know, I'm using it for this talk. Can your company pay for external courses as well? That's something that I know a designer friend of mine did. So the company paid for her to go on an animation course, because it benefits them. And I think that's an important thing, you know, when you're kind of arguing for these things, talk about how it benefits the company as well, because they're quite selfish and, you know, no one's really got any money at the moment. But if you always talk about how this course is a solution to a problem they're having. So I know for my designer, she said, no one on the team can animate. Let me do this and we'll get more bookings from clients because they'll see the quality of our work. So always phrase it in a way that benefits the company. You just have to be smart with it, but definitely have a look for what you want and go after it and make it happen for yourself. Even down to speaking to a member of staff for advice. So for me this morning, I mentioned that I run a newsletter and I kind of want to, well, I do want to turn it into a book, and I would like to land a book deal in the next few years. Someone at Red Magazine has done that really successfully. She's called Natasha Lunn, and she wrote Conversations on Love, which went to like a 6-way auction. It was incredible. And I just said, would you mind if I asked you a few questions? I'd love to get your advice because you've clearly done this and I would love to kind of take tips from you. And she spent 45 minutes on the phone with me. So seeking out those opportunities doesn't always have to be a course or a bit of kit. It can just be make the most of the connections you've got while you're there. And most people in journalism are lovely and so willing to share and give advice and kind of spare their time to help you progress. So don't ask, don't get is a big kind of phrase of mine. And as long as you're polite and professional, most people will always be willing to help. Then I would also say advocate for yourself. So I'm going to kind of tie advocate for yourself and enter awards together. And like I said, there's a reason I mentioned them at the start of this talk. How do you think most people win awards? They enter themselves into them. This is not something that I particularly knew, especially when I came into the industry. But I was like, whoa, this person's getting an award. This person's getting an award. How do you do it? And you can wait for someone to nominate you, or you just nominate yourself, because again, no one's going to be a bigger advocate for you than you can be for yourself. So there are heaps of free awards that you can enter. You don't have to pay for some of them, but for some of them, there is a big fee attached to it. And your company will kind of decide who they want to put forward for that. But definitely make it known to your manager, like, oh, I'd love to be considered for this award. And what I did is I took a list of awards to my company and I said, these are the ones I want to enter. They said, this is the budget we've got for you. Pick from the free ones and the paid ones that matches the budget. And then it goes from there. So I think awards are great for your own confidence, but the reason I wanted to enter them is because I wanted to build up my name and build up a profile for myself. So it's about thinking smart as well. And what areas do you want to be recognized in? What areas do you want your name to be out there in? Look for those awards. So I know for beauty writers, there's like the Jasmine Awards, which is perfume awards. And as I mentioned, the PPAs and the BSMEs are some of the biggest journalism awards. Then, for diversity, there's European Diversity Awards, National Diversity Awards, Asian Women of Achievement Awards, which we should shout out here. There's so many awards that you can kind of look into. And again, that builds up your connection and your network as well. So networking isn't as scary as it sounds. It can be all of those things. So think about your long-term goals and kind of have a plan of how these things are going to get there. And again, phrase it to your company as how it's going to benefit them. So I always say it's good for me to win awards because I'm from Hearst, and it makes, us an award-winning team. And it works. So definitely go after them. And then make your workplace work for you. So this might be something that is for a little bit further on in your career. But for example, as I mentioned, I was freelancing quite a lot and working full time and doing my newsletter, trying to drink enough water, exercise, cook, clean. It was too much. And I got to a point where I looked at my finances and I thought, I can make this work if I go part-time. So again, make your workplace work for you. It doesn't have to be, especially after the pandemic, a 9-to-5 Monday to Friday environment. Could you look at working from home more often? Not every company will grant you that. I'm currently going through it with mine, aware this is going on YouTube, so I'm probably going to get told off, but past the point of caring. But think about ways your workplace could work for you. And if it's not serving you anymore, if you're dealing with difficult workplace, for example, one of my past managers, we didn't have a great relationship and that took a toll on my mental health. If it's not working for you, don't work until 9 o'clock at night to get all the work done. Your company won't be loyal to you and they won't reward that. So lean out if it's not working for you and focus your energies on freelancing, looking for other jobs, other job applications. But yeah, don't think you have to kind of be a slave to them when they're not giving anything back to you. Of course, if you're happy and they are making it work for you, stay put, go for that, work hard, but don't think that you have to just because you're there. If they're not serving you and it's, actually worse for you, take your free time back. And now the last section, because I'm aware I definitely, oh, no, I've gone too far. I want to answer some questions. It's all about knowing your worth, and this is about money. I love talking about money, and it's something that I think is too quiet in the industry. I don't think a lot of people talk about how much they're being paid, how much they're being paid for freelance pieces, what their wage is, and I'm not cool with that. I would much rather talk about money. So I better walk the walk as well as talk the talk. I think it's good to say that when I started, I was on I think I was offered £50 a day when I was working at InStyle or something like that. And it was pretty shit. I didn't know that I should have negotiated that. I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. So it was a bit rubbish. And then when I went to Hearst, I was on 23. And the reason I was on 23 was because I was in a commercial role, and commercial roles pay more than editorial roles. So then I went from 23, I had a bit of a pay rise to 25. Then I got promoted and I went up to 27. Then I got a pay rise again, and I think I went to 32, I think. And then, this is the best bit, then I knew I wanted to go part-time, but I thought, let me be smart about this. I need to negotiate. I got a promotion, a new job, and I said I need to negotiate that pay, get that high, and then I'll say I'm going part-time. So I went from 32 to 42, and now I'm on 60% of 42 because I work 3 days a week. So it's kind of pro rata. So that's my money journey. In terms of freelance pieces, commercially, when I commission, I can pay about 200, and that's kind of what I get from other brands as well. Editorially, it could be anything between 75 to 150 for kind of 600-word pieces. But one thing I wanted to mention is that there are loads of online resources. I think Journo Resources has one. Journo Resources is fantastic as well. I think they have a big list of who pays what in terms of freelance rates, and who salaries. If you Google, there's stuff out there that kind of gives you an idea of what people are on. But yeah, talking about money, some people don't like it, and I'm always respectful of that. If I kind of know someone, and I want to know if the wage I'm being offered for my promotion is fair, I'll kind of go to someone in a similar position and say, this is my situation, I hope you don't mind me asking, but would you be able to share what you earn, or are you in this bracket as well? And that way they can kind of say, no, I don't feel comfortable sharing, which is totally their right. But that's where, again, those communities come in. So if you've got a group of people you feel safe with, you can kind of go, oh, is this really low? Is this really high? And speaking of high, negotiate your pay. So this is something I didn't know that I could do back when I was being paid £50 a day and taken advantage of. You should always negotiate your pay, because a white man is going to, a white woman is going to, all of these people are going to, and you're the only one losing out if you don't negotiate. I think negotiation can seem like it's it can seem scary. It can seem like it's a bit rude or disrespectful. Everyone's done it and everyone's had to do it. And you have to look after yourself and make sure that you're getting the best money possible. Obviously, don't be ridiculous. If they've offered you 24k, don't ask for 100. But, have a little think about what you would want. So for me, they said, we're going to give you this promotion or new job. And I said, okay. And then they offered me 39, and I was like, I want 50. So always go higher than what you want, because then they'll meet you in the middle. If I'd gone with 40, they'd have been like, done, deal signed. And actually I got them up to 42. So negotiate your pay. Again, you can give reasons. You can say, I increase social traffic by X%. I'm an award-winning journalist. I've brought kind of respect to the team. Have contributed to XYZ. Give your reasons. But then, don't settle as well. So they offered me 39. I said no. Then they came back and they said 41. And I was like, no, wait. I think they offered me 40. And I said no. My manager they said to her, okay, we'll give her 41. And my manager said, I'm not taking that to her because she's not going to accept it. So it is like a conversation. It is a back and forth. It's not just going to be a quick thing. But get your community to give you a little pep talk and go in there and get what you want in terms of money. Then in terms of redefining value, yeah, this is kind of what, if you're not going to get a pay rise, or you're not going to get a higher rate for the freelance commission that you've been asked to do, what could you get instead? So if they're not going to give you a pay rise, could they pay for a course for you? Could they, could you get an extra day's worth of holiday? There are different, and this is something I learned from Mariam Khan, who is fantastic and you should also follow. But value isn't just monetary. And there is a conversation sometimes that pops up about, an independent magazine like Aurelia magazine. People will say, oh, they're only paying £40 for an article. That's the value that they can pay because they're an independent publication. If the Daily Mail is offering you £40, they can afford to pay you more. So I don't kind of see it as a linear, this is good, this is bad. It depends. Like, if you want to work for Aurelia, you're working for I believe it's women of color led publication, Galdem, they might not be able to pay loads, but it's really supporting a cause and getting your name, building that community, getting connected with that commissioning editor, having your work on a platform that aligns with your values. There's other ways to think about value rather than just money. So yeah, could it be that if you're close enough to someone, could they kind of do you a favor? Could they give you an email address? I wouldn't do that for people you don't know, feels a bit like bribery, but just rethink in terms of money, how else you could kind of swing things. And then I believe my last point before I shut up for a bit is join a union. Now, the main journalist union is the NUJ. They have a sliding scale of what you pay. So you pay per month to be part of a union. And I don't take this as kind of gospel. It's depends on your financial situation and what your needs are. But for me, I found it helpful. When I was dealing with a tricky situation at work, I got to go to them for advice. If you're ever made redundant, which in journalism is likely, and it will feel like the end of the world, but you'll be fine and you'll move on and get great jobs afterwards. They can kind of help you with legal support with that. A union can just, they've helped me understand my rights in terms of working from home permanently. They have helped me with my tax. Like, joining a union is, again, a bigger community of really experienced people who can kind of help you in ways you might not know you need. And that's the thing, you're kind of paying that monthly fee for the future when it's all going to become worth it, even if it doesn't feel worth it right now. But investigate it, see if you think it's for you, see if you can afford it on the sliding scale. And I don't necessarily think you would need to join that until you're in employment, or until you're really setting yourself up as a freelancer. But it's something to think about. And basically, I'm just going to end with my two mantras. My two mantras are don't ask, don't get. And my second one is ask forgiveness, not permission, which gets me in trouble, but I'm doing all right. So that's the last thing I'm going to say as part of this presentation.
That was brilliant. Thank you. And just on joining unions, I don't think you can ever be too early in your career. Like, I was made redundant from my first ever journalism job. And before that, I was kind of like, oh, you only get made redundant when you're older. No, it can happen to you at any age. So I'm so happy that you mentioned that. So we've had some questions in the chat. The first one is, what websites or social media pages would you recommend finding experience for young people in school? And I'm going to quickly, because you mentioned Go Think Big, which I used when I was in school. And I think the time that you mentioned, I think we would have been doing work experience at Bauer at the same time, because I was at Kerrang in September 2014. So for everyone in this masterclass, the media world is teeny tiny. But apart from Go Think Big, do you have any other recommendations for people wanting to do work experience when they're still in school?
So there's some laws. I feel like there's some laws that in some places you have to be maybe it is 16, but go think big, creative access, a Twitter feed, UK fashion intern, fashion worky. I would, another tip is to follow people who work at those magazines on social media. So when I was looking for interns for my team, unfortunately we're not doing it at the moment, I would always be tweeting. So follow like the fashion editors, the editorial assistants, follow them on Instagram. I know Jennifer Savin and Daniela Scott at Cosmopolitan, they will often post, and Catriona Innes, they'll post, you know, when they're looking for interns on their kind of Instagram stories. And go local as well. So like I said, kind of cold email newspapers or fashion magazines or just local fashion events. I think it is just all about keeping your eye out. Oh, Gulkana is a potential one, but that may be for jobs only and not internships. The Dots is another kind of platform that you can sign up to that might only be for that might not be for internships, but if you just kind of Google, you know, fashion internships, journalism internships, and you look on Twitter and Facebook as well, there, and gals in journalism, just all of these spaces where there's people, they'll always post opportunities because they want great people to come back to them. So those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head, but on my Twitter feed after this talk, I'll reshare a couple of links and a couple of kind of pieces of advice that I've done in the past. So, because I've got a big list, I know I have, but I'll reshare it on my Twitter feed after this talk.
That would be super helpful. I'm also going to quickly mention local journalism, because I mean, I know sometimes it's not ideal when I have heard horror stories, someone just goes and makes tea for a week, but even if it's awful like that, at least you're kind of in that environment and you might be just absorbing stuff from being in the office. Actually, I'm going to quickly disable screen sharing quickly for recording purposes. So the next question is, how old were you when you first, oh no, that's not the next question, I've got ahead of myself. Is it worth emailing big news companies like GB News for work experience, internships, or shadowing? Or do they most likely only allow people who go through the schemes that they have?
They will most likely only allow people through the schemes that they have, but I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, emailing and saying, hi X, you know, really love the work that you do, just wanted to let you know I've applied for an internship or shadowing through this scheme and I hope to meet you soon. So that just kind of cements you in their mind as someone who is really interested and is really passionate, and they'll look out for that as well, maybe when they're sifting through entries. So yeah, definitely show that you're aware of the formal processes, because I think journalists can get irritated by people who don't kind of read the information that's available online. So show that you're aware. But I don't think there's anything wrong with sending a quick email, and always add like a little personal note about why you want to work there, why you're emailing that specific person. But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Shoot your shot.
Exactly. That is another thing we can carry away for after this. But the next question is, how old were you when you first started pitching?
God, in terms of pitching, I wasn't focused on pitching when I was young. I just wanted to get into a job, and I didn't really think about it. I probably first started pitching when I was 20. We're in 2022. So I'm 29, 24, probably when I was about 26, let's say. And my pitches were rubbish. You know, my pitches weren't good because I didn't know how to pitch and I didn't have the experience, but getting the feedback on my pitches was great. And even though it was a no, the feedback was really useful for me. So I don't think, you know, like I said, if you're kind of wondering if you're too young or, you know, you've missed the boat, there's no bad age to start pitching, whether it's young or older. Just go for it. Follow their guidelines, but just go for it.
Yeah, definitely. The pitching guidelines, like you mentioned, super helpful. We've had another question. I'm currently freelancing and wondered how you felt about negotiating pay for a pitch that's been accepted, especially when it's not clear why you deserve more. Like if it doesn't involve an obvious amount of extra effort for travel, research. So for like opinion pieces or essays, yeah, that kind of thing. I worry that sometimes these pieces are seen as less valuable. And would you rather preserve the relationship or kind of risk it by negotiating?
So there's a few things that I want to say. In terms of, I'm just reading it through to make sure that I can kind of answer all the questions. In terms of negotiating pay, one thing to bear in mind is that commissioning editors only have a set amount of budget. So it may not be that they're giving you 50 when they can pay you 500. That might be all they have to give you. So that's worth bearing in mind. And that goes back to my point about it being, be reasonable with what you're asking for, but always kind of go higher than what you want. For opinion pieces, it may be that the opinions commissioning editor has a smaller budget than the investigative, editor. That could be the case. But I don't think it's rude, again, as long as you do it in kind of the right way, to negotiate. And I don't think that will kill your relationship with the editor. So for example, Metro commissioned me and they offered me 70. And I said, oh, I was kind of hoping, I remembered one thing I wanted to say. I was kind of hoping for 100. Do you think that's possible? And they said, we can't really stretch to that, but we could do 80. So that, that's where you can kind of negotiate and get a little bit more. And I was offered to create a gift guide for a magazine. And I was offered £800 and I was like, shit. So I thought, oh, shit, they've got money. So I said, I'd probably be looking at more like 1,000 for this level of work. And they said, oh, we can't do 1,000, but we can do 900. And I was like, okay, I'll accept. So, it's just bumping it up a little bit. And one thing, so you mentioned when it's not really clear why you deserve more, e.g. an obvious amount of extra effort for travel, interviewing, etc. Yes, you should probably be paid a little bit more for anything that's, more extensive versus a listicle, for example. But also they're paying you for your time. And, it's important that a lot of freelancers I know at the moment have upped their rates because the cost of living has gone up. And, they're paying for your expertise and they're paying for your training that you've done and they're paying for your skills. So it's more about, I think it's a shift in terms of thinking about money, because yes, there is that element to it about, does it need extra effort? Does it need a lot of extra detail and stuff? But also don't do yourself down and think, oh, well, this is only a listicle that I should only get paid £60 or something, because also it's your time and your time is valuable. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, like what's a day for me? I'm doing some shift for Cosmo and sometimes the pay varies. And I'm like, okay, well, the pay is this. That means I can only do this amount of hours because that's the value of my time. So I hope that slightly made sense because I was kind of thinking about it in my brain on the spot. But I don't think, again, if you're just going back once, I don't think that's a negative thing. And I don't think an editor should be annoyed at you. It might happen. They might send you a sassy email back, but it's fine. If you get the extra money, it's all good.
I have a couple questions about pay as well. Do you think that, because I don't know if you had the same thing, but when I started kind of telling people I wanted to be a journalist, there was this whole thing where everyone would be like, oh, well, don't expect to make too much money then. And there was this whole idea that the pay will always be shit. Do you think that kind of feeds into this idea that like you should just be happy with what you get in this industry?
I think that's what companies want you to be. Companies want you, and that was one thing I meant to say. Companies kind of want you to be grateful that you're even there. It's like, is it Devil Wears Prada? He's like, 1,000,000 girls would kill for your job. You just deign to work here. And I think that it's true. A lot of people would want that job, and but if you've got there, you've worked hard to get there, and it is hard work. But I almost think the pay is potentially getting worse. Because what I've seen in loads of different companies is what they'll do is they'll make someone redundant, or that person will choose to leave, and they'll spread out their workload between someone existing and hire someone new who's more junior. And that's why my pay in particular is quite lucky, but it's because I'm in commercial. You know, I would know section editors on websites might get like 27. That a lot of people who entered the industry a long time ago, like a decade or a couple of decades, they're on shit tons of money. And that's why they're all being made redundant, because they're costing the company so much money. And I think pay is getting worse, which is another reason I really want to kind of say to people, have your own thing going on the side, because the pay might not be great. They will have no qualms about making anyone redundant in a heartbeat. So make sure you've always got your eye on the ball, like thinking about, what skills do I have that don't just serve me in this job, but also serve me in freelance work, in my own side hustle, like whatever it is you might be doing. But yeah, pay is not great. I can't lie.
Yeah, I think it really emphasizes that you just have to look out for yourself. This is the last call for questions, but in the meantime, I'm going to ask a quick one. You mentioned Devil Wears Prada a couple of times, and when you said you worked in a fashion closet, it made me think of the bold type immediately. What do you think are the best and almost realistic and unrealistic depictions of journalism in like TV and film?
So, Sex and the City, my God, Carrie writes one article a month, lives in a New York apartment, can afford Prada, unrealistic. And I don't know if everyone knows, but the bold type is based on Cosmo. It's based on Cosmo in the US, and the ex-Cosmo editor is like a producer on the show.
Wow.
So in that sense, a lot of the storylines are realistic, because they take storylines that have happened, but they're always done from a biased point of view. So I don't want to spoil things, but when when they kept referring to like the.com, and when she printed out an article that the editor uploaded to the website, that's bullshit. But there has been beef between the digital team and the print teams, and they separated them out for a bit so they could both grow. And when they brought them back together, a lot of the print teams looked down on the digital team, and they replaced, they kind of got rid of their big editor and had a kind of a younger person who had more digital experience. So that storyline was told from such a biased point of view, because it made it out like print is the only thing that is good and digital is just shit. And I don't think that's the case whatsoever. So it's kind of real, kind of fake. I loved watching The City, which was a spin-off from The Hills. They worked in a fashion PR company, and I would say that was kind of realistic. But yeah, I think I watched that. Those programs can teach you something, but they're not the most realistic thing. Like, I can't think of anyone that's done it really well, like unless it's like a real a true story, like something like Inventing Anna that's on at the moment. You see the woman with all of those papers and speaking to her colleagues and having to go to Rikers to interview Anna, or something like was it Spotlight, that was about so again, you kind of get that sense of like a newspaper environment. But anything that's kind of fun entertainment, it's all bullshit. It's not really like that. And it's not as bitchy as people make it seem as well. Everyone's lovely.
Speaking of, someone's just asked, what are your thoughts on Ugly Betty? And I loved Mark and Amanda, but I have never met people like that in the industry.
I loved Ugly Betty. I absolutely loved it. Oh God, I watched it so long ago that I don't know if I would say it was realistic, because at the time I also wasn't in journalism, so I couldn't kind of compare it in real time. But if it's streaming anywhere, let me know, because I need to like rewatch it to remind myself.
On Disney Plus at the moment.
Good, I know what I'm doing tonight.
Yeah.
But I think what they can do is they can kind of give you, and it is glamorous, it is fun. I get to go to parties and I get to dress up, and I'm being taken to the opera next week, and you get to interview celebrities, and it Amazon Prime, yes. And it is really fun, and there is that element to it. But I kind of said to my friend who was moaning about her job, she was like, oh, but you get to do such cool stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but my pay is shit and I have no job stability. But the fun stuff is good. So I definitely don't want to make out to anyone on this call that it's kind of dull. Every day is different. It's really fun. You get to meet so many different people, and that's what I love the most, is hearing loads of different people's stories. So those shows kind of give you an insight into, you might be on a fashion shoot one day, and then you'll be going to get your editor lunch, you know, and then you'll be wearing Dior. Like, all those things could happen. But it's a lot of hard work. One extra, I know we're running over time, but one extra thing I wanted to add is staff writer roles they're like gold dust, and entry-level roles gold dust. And often you might be surprised at how little even writers and editors get to write about what they want to write about. It's all about SEO, e-commerce, celebrity news. It's all about this. I mean, you know this, it's all about the stuff that drives traffic and makes the business money. As much as I want to write about anti-racism and inclusion every day, it's not what makes money. So I think people might be surprised at kind of how little you actually, and again, I don't mean that to sound negative, but you know, you don't actually get to just kind of pitch 3 pieces you want to write and that's it, you're good. There's a lot of other stuff to it. And that's where, you know, having that kind of freelance side hustle comes in as well, because you can flex your creativity in other areas if it's not happening at work. But it's wonderful. I love being a journalist.